Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Sea Red UK podcast with me, Neill, where sleep is optional, loving the Bulls isn't. So before we get into it today, with a little bit of a catch up, I was away for a week on holiday or vacation, and so I'm just kind of trying to roll back into things now, cover a few of the little things that may have gone on while I've been away. So I'll get into that straight after this.
It's time to see red.
Welcome back, Bulls fans. Hopefully you're all enjoying this downtime away from the Chicago Bulls and the NBA, as it's known as the Dog Days. At the moment, we're right in the thick of it. But therefore, that means that we are also slowly building up towards what is going to be pre-season and media day, and of course starting out going back into training camp. So in the meantime, there's probably a lot less information and a lot less news breaking out there. Of course, there is one thing that's hanging over the Chicago Bulls the whole time, this big dark cloud, and that is the Josh Giddey situation. However, I don't anticipate that getting fixed or sorted anytime drastically soon. It seems to be a bit of a stalemate, and I'll get into that in just a few moments. But first of all, the first big thing that was announced was that the Bulls Cup nights have been released. They've released the dates for the four games for the Cup prior to qualifier. And the Bulls have been placed in Group C against the New York Knicks, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Miami Heat, and the Charlotte Hornets. So, you know, a lot of the usual suspects there, of course. New York and Miami are real problem teams for Chicago. Bucks are a little bit less kind of a known factor right now with some of the changes that they've been through. However, you know, they've got Giannis Antetokounmpo, so you just never know with them. They're always going to be a tough team as long as he's on the floor. So the key dates are then on the 31st of October, we've got a Halloween special at home against the New York Knicks, and the likes of Jalen Brunson, Cat, Bridges, Mitchell Robinson, Anunoby, and et al. They're all there going to cause problems for the Bulls. We know the Knicks are really, really beginning to cement themselves as a team to watch out for in the NBA right now. So that's always going to be a tough game. However, of course, they are going through the transition of a new coach, and we don't know yet how that is or is not going to affect them going forward. So it's a wait and see with those. But when you've got a core group like they have that have played so well together, I do think that they are always going to be a bit of a concern and always a team to watch out for. So we shall see. Milwaukee Bucks, like I say, you've still got the likes of Giannis and Portis there, and Kuzma, Cole Anthony, Miles Turner, KPJ. I mean, it's still a strong squad. It's still going to be tough to beat. Any team that has Giannis at its core is always going to be a tough one to beat. And we have them on November the 7th as an away game. The third game then is the Miami Heat, November 21st at home. Now, we all know that the Miami Heat are in and around, not too far off what the Chicago Bulls are on paper. However, if the play-in was anything to go by, despite how well we played against the Miami Heat during the course of the regular season last year, they knew how to switch it on and come out and absolutely blitz the Bulls. Now, the question is, was that a one-hit wonder? Was that just that they turned up on the night, Chicago never? Or is this really a bogey team for the Bulls? Players have mentioned there, obviously Jimmy Butler is now gone, but you've got the likes of Terry Rozier, Khalil Ware, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Andrew Wiggins, Mitchell. KJ is the one to look out for, of course. He's their newest acquisition. Kasparas Jakinjonas. And, the Miami Heat are coached so well. They're always going to be a team to look out for. They're always going to be a tough team to play against. And like I say, is a home game. And as we know, for the Bulls, playing at home, it tends to be a bit more of a challenge than away games for some very, very strange and unapparent reason that I can't quite get my head around, along with many of Bulls Nation. So the final game then is an away game on November 28th against the Hornets. And like that, again, the Hornets now, they should be a team that you think to yourself, okay, we've got the beating of the Hornets, but the Hornets have had a pretty strong offseason. And, you've got a lineup along the lines of Bridges, LaMelo, Concanipple as their new signing, Sexton, Seth Curry, Kalkbrenner as well as their other new signing, Trey Mann. I mean, this team isn't to be sniffed at either. If they can get it together, and if LaMelo Ball can stay healthy, then I genuinely think that the Hornets could surprise some people this season coming up. Let's just hope that it's not on that night against the Chicago Bulls. But that's if you care about the Cup, of course. I know a lot of people aren't particularly interested in the NBA Cup. Some people think it's a bit of a waste or a money spin for the NBA. But it's something that the players seem to have bought into, maybe more so than the fans. So, I mean, if the players are bought in and the league is bought in, then maybe as fans, we need to start kind of opening our minds to it that little bit more than we have done, perhaps. I'm kind of on the fence with it. Neither totally against the NBA Cup, nor am I totally with the NBA Cup either. I just kind of see it for what it is. And, it's just another game as it's included as part of the regular season. And you can look at it that way if you wish, or you can look at it as a stepping stone to a chance to win something, even if you're not in the running for a chip. And it's, it gives teams that are at the lower end, I guess, the opportunity to fight for something, perhaps. And of course, then there's that payout for the players, that 500,000. But the thing I don't like about the NBA Cup, and it has been and will continue to be until they sort it out, a real pain in my side, is the courts. The courts, the way they have been designed for the last 2 years. Okay, last year was a little bit of an improvement from the prior year, and let's hope they improve again this year. But some of those courts are just horrific to look at. They're just disgusting. They're off-putting. I don't know what it's like for the players, but watching it on TV, it can be quite distracting and just a little bit too much for the eyes to take in. And there's enough going on in basketball as it is. It's a fast-paced game without being distracted by what's painted on the floor. So anyway, moving on from that, then there are key dates that have also been announced. I mean, the actual full schedule is imminent. It could possibly even be released by the time I get this out to you. And I'll cover that on the next pod. But just key dates, as in the opening nights, Christmas Day, Martin Luther King Day, they've been announced. The teams for those days have been announced. They're kind of considering an opening day as a two-nighter. And the big point to note there is the fact that there's no Bulls games. Not that it's a major surprise. I mean, we haven't played on Christmas Day for quite some time now. No opening night game. So we'll follow suit a few days later, I guess. And no game on Martin Luther King Day. Now, I believe, if memory serves me, we have played on Martin Luther King Day in recent years, but certainly omitted for this year coming up. So moving away then from scheduling and key dates, the next thing I want to discuss, I touched on at the start, it's kind of the biggest news for the Bulls right now. And it's like I say, it's that grey cloud that's hanging over, but I really expect that grey cloud to not dissipate anytime drastically soon, as much as a lot of people would like it to. I think that as it stands, that contract is a little bit of a stalemate. The Bulls certainly have the upper hand. I've discussed this before. They definitely have the upper hand in regards to, there's not really any other teams that are in a position right now as it stands, without making some sort of other moves, that are in a position to offer Giddey any more than the Bulls can offer him. So he's in this position where he wants a certain amount of money, or his camp are looking for a certain amount of money. And the rumor that's been thrown out there is 30 million per year. That's been quite well documented at this stage. Of course, it's all rumor. None of it has been actually stated as fact. But 30 million seems to be the figure that's being battered around. The Bulls apparently are closer to the 20 million mark. Like I said previously, I still expect them to fall somewhere in the middle. But the latest reports and rumors are that it's closer to the offer that has been made at around about 22, 23 million by the Bulls, as opposed to 25, 26 million and the upper end of it. There was a release from Jake Fisher, who those of you who listen to this pod regularly would know that I don't put an awful lot of stock into what Jake Fisher tends to say. I'm still waiting for him to come out with breaking news that he absolutely stands by 100%, and it turns out to be true. So until that day comes, I kind of take a lot of what Jake Fisher comes out with a pinch of salt. But the word is that there were talks of a sign and trade with Golden State for Giddey. Now, this has been debunked since by Jeff Siegel. He came out and said that there's been absolutely no word on this whatsoever. It seems like Fisher just plucked that out of the sky. Now, I do think that Fisher is actually a Golden State Warriors fan. So maybe it was a little bit of wishful thinking or just stirring the pot or just trying to get his name out there. I don't know. I don't understand that kind of mentality personally. But look, nothing against him. I don't know him personally. I just don't believe a lot of what he comes out with. And by the looks of things, neither does Siegel. So the latest rumor that came out was a contract for 4 years, 80 million. So that's 20 million per year. I think that's a bit too far away from where Josh is looking to kind of land. I've also heard rumors out there, and there's word going around that they're expected to agree more around the 65 to 70 million over 3 years, which would place him around about the 22, 23 million point. And that's where I would expect it to kind of get agreed in and around that. I'd be perfectly okay with that. I think it would be just that little bit enough that everybody in the Giddey camp could be happy enough with that. I think Josh could be happy with that. It secures him in a position for 3 years. It becomes a movable contract for the Bulls. Just please don't add any player preferences at the end of it. You know, if there's a player option there, I'm just not interested in that at all. No more player options, please. Team options, yeah, no problem. I'll work with them, absolutely. Or just a straight contract. That works for me too. Like I said on the last pod, I also wouldn't mind seeing some sort of a sweetener in there. If you make the All-Star game, if you get a certain number of triple doubles, if you average a certain number of assists and score points, things along those lines. If you make All NBA, first, second, or third team, any of those things could be added as sweeteners, and then we'll give you a bonus. I think that could be quite a good way to meet a middle ground as well. That way you can actually set the contract that little bit lower and put those sweeteners in there, and that's then putting the ball into Josh Giddey's hands, if you pardon the phrase. It puts the ball into Josh Giddey's hands to go out there and earn himself those bonus dollars by actually hitting on those settings that I put out there for him and those targets. So that being said, if it does land at the point where it's not something that Josh is happy with or Josh's camp is happy with, if they can't come to an agreement, like I say, there's not really any options out there. And like you see with the restricted free agency, you even see it with the likes of Kuminga, etc., that are out there at the moment. They're not making these moves anymore with the new salary caps and the new player agreements that are out there. It's just not moving the way it would have done before. So that being said, Josh Giddey could find himself sitting in a position where he's like, either I have to stomach this and take the lower money, or he can take a punt on himself. Now, we've seen this done previously where it works. We've seen this done previously where it doesn't work. Biggest one that I can think of in memory for the Chicago Bulls is Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was he bet on himself, and it very much worked out in his favor. But it's a risk, because if you take the qualifying offer as a player and then you underperform, or you take that qualifying offer and you get an injury during the course of the season, especially if it's an extensive injury where you miss a lot of time, that's a big risk that you're taking then, because then you're going to come back in and you're not going to make the kind of money that you would probably have made initially if you just signed the initial contract. So it's a risk. There's a huge risk factor involved for the player taking the qualifying offer. Now, the qualifying offer, from what I believe, would be somewhere on the 11.2 mark for Josh. And I just don't see him doing it. All the rumors and all the belief systems that are out there seem to be that Josh wants to be in Chicago. Chicago wants Josh to be in Chicago, as in the Bulls franchise itself and management. So I just think a deal will eventually get done. The Bulls are playing hardball, which is what you should do as a business. And Josh is just playing away in Australia, keeping himself to himself, tipping away, allowing his agents to do the job for him. And that is exactly how it works. That's the way this business is run, and it's the right way to do it. And eventually they're going to come to an agreement. Just don't expect that to necessarily happen anytime in the imminent future. That could very well drag out even into the season, as been known to happen before. So watch this space. If anything does come up, I'll certainly be jumping on the mic and talking about it. So moving on to the next thing I wanted to talk about then. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was, I actually think that the Chicago Bulls may have made a move this offseason that is kind of lying under the surface a little bit. It's flying under the radar and not getting the level of appreciation that it might end up deserving as the season starts to play through. And that's the Isaac Okoro to the Chicago Bulls for Lonzo move. And yes, at the time when the move was made, I could see the sense in the move in regards to getting Lonzo off the books, who is probably only going to give you 35, if you're lucky, to 40 games, for a player that is pretty likely to give you closer to maybe 60 games. And that, as I've discussed before, availability is a skill set. If you're available to your team, then you are worth more to that team than someone who is unavailable to your team. So I understand the move from that respect. The puzzling bit was, why were there no picks? And look, we know with the Josh Giddey thing, should have been picks, didn't get picks. With the Lonzo Okoro thing, should have been picks, didn't get picks. I don't know why AK does not seem to favor picks or put any stock in picks, especially second round picks. I wish it would change. I hope it does change. If we're going to continue to grow this roster the slow way, the right way, then picks are certainly the way to do that. But taking what should have been out of it, which I know a lot of people have struggled to do with Josh Giddey, because everybody was so angered that AC, who was beloved, was allowed to go for a straight swap for Josh Giddey. And this has been the same thing again. Lonzo Ball has gone as a straight swap for Isaac Okoro. Well, don't let that taint your opinion of the player, like a lot of people in Bulls Nation allowed to happen when it came to Josh Giddey, right? There's still people out there who are hating on Josh Giddey because he was traded straight up for AC. that wasn't Josh's fault, right? And I think Josh done a great job of taking it on his shoulders and trying to be the best player he could be as the season progressed. And I'm really hoping that by the end of this coming season, that Josh wins people over and they realize, okay, what we saw at the end of last season is more of what we were expecting going forward with Josh Giddey, as opposed to what we saw when he first transitioned to the Chicago Bulls. Anyway, pushing that aside, don't allow that to happen again, right? Keep an open mind and let's see what Okoro brings. I personally think he could be the X factor. This guy was ready to get out of Cleveland and wants a fresh start, wants somewhere new, seems to be quite happy about the fact that he's been moved to Chicago. He is a defensive-minded wing. And defense is what we need. So we've got Okoro on defense now. We also have the likes of Io, who looks like he's staying, who's a two-way player. Matas Buzelis is definitely a defensive style player as well as offensive. So he's also a two-way player. Now, Okoro might not necessarily be two-way, but he is defensive. So now all of a sudden we've gone from saying, well, we've got no defensive players last season. We have no defense. We lost AC, who was our defense guy. Lonzo Ball was injured pretty much for most of the season still. He was our other defensive guy. Now he's gone. Well, Mattis proved himself as being defensive. You've got Noah Senge, who is also able to play defense more than offense. You have Io, who is a two-way player. And now you've got Isaac Okoro, who is also defensive-minded type player. We've gone from what felt like no players that could play defense, or maybe Io as being our only kind of player who could play a bit of defense, to now looking at, well, we have maybe within our starting 6 or 7 in the rotation, we have 3 or 4 players who now care about defense. So all of a sudden, we're not as defensively obstructed as we were previously. And if they can start to pull it together, one thing I will say about defense, right, if you've got a really, really good defender on your team, or a handful of really good defenders on the team, it's infectious. Because if you see 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 players beginning to see success defensively and create success for the team as a whole, you tend to find that the other players start to buy in a little bit more. And the other players start to care a little bit more about playing defense. I mean, we've seen shades of it from Kobe White as well. And I think that he could start to buy in that a little bit more again. Because I kind of thought he let himself go a little bit last season on the defensive end. And I think maybe he might kind of bring that back into his game that little bit more. We need that from Kobe. So I think this could actually be potentially quite a good catalyst or catalytic move in regards to building some sort of a defensive culture within the team. He's definitely looking to make an impact. And anybody who's anybody knows that if you want to make your place on an NBA roster, doing it offensively has to be elite for that to be your buy-in on the floor. Has to be elite. If you're average, that's not going to get you floor time. But if you can play defense, if you can play with effort and heart and hustle, that always turns a coach's head. That gets you minutes. That gets you on the floor. And then you can work on the offense stuff to go with it. And it's not like he's a bust offensively either. I mean, he is well able to cut and slash and attack the rim that way and score and finish. And he's not useless. He just can't really create for himself very much. He's not an off-the-ball type scorer by any stretch of the imagination. Do we really need that? Is that something that we need? Is another player who needs the ball in their hands? I don't think so. When you've got the likes of Josh Giddey playing out there, and you've got the likes of Kobe White playing out there, and Matas Buzelis, who's even proven that he can play a little bit with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's got really silky moves for a big guy. And we know Nikola Vucevic can move the ball around well and has great court vision for a big and stretch the floor. So do we really need another one of those? I'm not so sure that we do. But if we can get somebody who can get on the end of a lob pass, or who can get on into the gaps and into the holes defensively, offensively, and break down the defense, well, I think that could work out well when you've got the likes of Josh Giddey, who can facilitate and pass the ball, and you've got players that are slashing the rim like Kobe can and like Mattis does. And then you've also got Noah Senge, who's going to be there whatever minutes he gets. He's also going to be somebody that doesn't create his own shot but will attack the rim. And all of a sudden, you've got a team that's kind of harder to defend, and you've got a team that's harder to break down on the offensive end. And I think that maybe not straight away, but I think that this could start to develop into a bit of a benefit for the Bulls as the season goes on. But we just need to see how they gel and how they work together and how it all pans out that way. I mean, Okoro, he's 6'5", 225. He was the 5th pick in the 2020 draft, right? Which put him just behind Patrick Williams, which is ironic now that he's going to be replacing Patrick Williams, probably. He's a great perimeter defender. He can defend 1 through 3 and smaller 4s as well. And he's got a high IQ. He's got a good basketball IQ and not a bad passer of the ball either. But the thing that I think that is going to really make him the X factor is that he is a hustle player. He's a hustle player who plays with effort. And that kind of blue-collar player is and always will be beloved by Chicago fans, because it's just, you know, as Sean Connery said, it's the Chicago way, right? Tough is the Chicago way. And this guy's going to play tough. And the likes of Javonte Green played tough. Everybody loved him. And Joakim Noah played tough. Everybody loved him. And those kinds of hard-nosed players definitely win the affections of Bulls Nation. And I actually think Okoro could surprise a lot of people and become that glue guy and that guy that wins the hearts of the fans. You heard it here. So moving on then to the final thing I want to have a little chat about, and that's the projected starting 5. Now, I know it's early days, and it could very well change. But at the moment, I just want to throw an early doors projection out there for my starters. And it's kind of off the back of what I've just been talking about anyway. I mean, the obvious players that are going to hit the starting 5. Now, especially with Billy, you know, these positionless times of basketball don't necessarily mean that these players are going to play solid 1 through 5, right? So there's a little bit of flexibility and give here in regards to who plays where, right? But it's the 5 that matters. It's the actual 5 that I'm trying to make a point of. So the obvious ones then, you've got Kobe White. Obviously, you've got Josh Giddey if and when he gets signed. Manas Buzelis, I think, holds and cracks that rotation and gets a starting role as a permanent thing. And if it doesn't happen, why the hell not? And Nikola Vucevic is obviously, once he's still here, and at the moment, I don't see any reason why he won't be until maybe further into the season at least. So he's obviously staying there. So that kind of leaves one spot. Now, over the last number of years, that starting spot has been handed to a certain player who ends up progressively losing that position as the season goes on, and that's P. Will. Now, it would make sense, I suppose, like I say, this positionless basketball now, so this is loosely thrown out there, but you'd be playing Kobe White at the 1 with Josh Giddey at the 2. Matas Buzelis could play the 3, 4, and then it would be P. Will that would be probably playing the 4 position, or possibly even the 3. The 2 of them would be kind of flexible with Vooch at the 5. But what I actually see happening now is Matas will stick to the 4. and Isaac Okoro will go to the 3. Or they could, there's a bit of flexibility on the 3 and 4 there. But I actually think Isaac Okoro will take the starting spot away from P. Will more so than Mattis. And not that I'm saying Mattis won't get his place, because he will. That's the 5 that I'm going to project. Kobe White, Josh Giddey, Isaac Okoro, Mattis Buzelis, and Nikola Vucevic. P. Will is going to slide down that bench. He will get minutes. There's no doubt about it. When he gets a contract like he got, they have to play him. But he's certainly not the go-to guy, I don't think, for the 25-26 season. I think the first off the bench, you're looking at the likes of Io and Herter as the first ones that will be most likely to come in off the bench. But we'll see. Like I say, early predictions, so they could very well change as things move forward. But what do you think? Let me know. Hit me up with a thumbs up while you're at it. Subscribe if you don't already. It really does make a massive, massive difference to me here. Going to try and grow the YouTube channel that little bit more in this upcoming season. Please do subscribe, share it around. Give me as much of a push out there as you possibly can. The way I'm looking at it is, this is my first season as a solo trying to do this. And if it doesn't work out for me, then I'm going to have to take a revision on what way I'm going to be going for the following season, if at all. But I do want to keep going. Hopefully you're going to get behind me. Please do. And until the next episode, I've been Neill, and you can find me at CRED UK on all the socials, or even at Neill CRED UK if you so wish. Until next time, CRED people, and go Bulls.